Welcome back to the JKA Massey Instructors course. Now we're on the KATA section of the course now, and I'd like to take up the next section, which would be the names of the KATA. So just put these on the board first. So today's subject is still KATA, and we're talking about the names of the KATA. So what I'd like to do for this section is to explain the words that go up to make the different KATA names. In order to do that, I think I've first of all got to just give a little bit of information about how Japanese words are formulated or put together. This is not going to be a Japanese lesson because I'm not a Japanese teacher, but I will just try to explain very briefly the principles behind how the Japanese words are constructed. Now, first of all, we've got that Japanese word that we are talking about today for the names of the katas. So this is the names that we're talking about here, and we're talking about the fact that they are made up of kanji. Kanji is can be translated as a character, and for the Japanese kanji, the origin of the kanji is usually from a Chinese word. So the Chinese word is the origin. So we can put over on this side Chinese, and on this side we have Japanese. So this is pretty much like English. We have a derivation for a word, and the derivation might come from Latin or it might come from Greek. So the Chinese is the derivation, it's the origin of the word. Now when we use an English word, we use it in the contemporary language style of English language. So Japanese is exactly the same. So let's say the origin is there, and the modern version of the word in Japanese is there. Now these are usually referred to as on and kun. So the on reading is primarily Japanese, and the kun reading is primarily, the on reading is primarily Chinese, and the kun reading is primarily Japanese. So what I'd like to also do, just very briefly, is show you a Japanese kanji book. Can you see that there? So this book actually is a guide to reading and writing Japanese, and I'm not sure you'll be able to see that on the back. No, probably not. But what it does actually is it explains each word or each picture in throughout the book, and this is a very useful style of book. This one is by Tuttle. So if you want to look for a good book on Japanese kanjis to improve your understanding of words, this book is a very good one. A bit old, this version, but never mind. Now, so in the book, usually the on reading is given with capital letters. So let's make an example here so that we can show how this works. So I'm going to take a pretty standard dojo word, and this word is seikaku. So I expect most of you have heard of this word, or you've had teachers asking you to do things seikaku ni. So what does it mean? So the first kanji here is what we would call an on reading. Sometimes we say on yomi. Yomi means to read. So the on yomi for sei is this here. So this is sei. And sei transfers if you're going to put that into a kun reading. So this is Chinese, the original Chinese word, and this is the transfer of the word, how the Japanese read it or how they say it. So in Japanese, sei means tadashi. And tadashi could be used to say correctly or do it something correct. So the English translation would be correct. Kaku here transfers into Japanese as tashi. And tashi means to do something, or it is meaning clear or evident. So when you put these two words together, you've got to do it, if it was a technique, so if the instructor was saying, do the technique seikaku ni, what does it mean? Well, it means to do it correctly, to make it clear or evident that you know what you're doing, and therefore the whole idea could perhaps be translated as accurate. So this idea means that when you put two on-readings together, they have individual meanings in Japanese, which is the kun reading, and quite often when you put that two characters together, you get a final meaning which can give a broader understanding of what the whole term might mean. So therefore seikaku ni means do it tadashi, correct, tashi or tashikani, which means clearly, evidently, and then when you put those two together, you might come up with something that transfers as do it accurately, do it as properly as you can. When we're doing a kata, because we're talking about kata today, we'd like to see the kata done seikaku ni, means as accurately and as clearly evident as possible that you know what you're doing with that particular kata. So this gives a little bit of an understanding of how the Japanese words are put together. Now, if we can transfer that to our kata names, then we can understand a little bit more about how the names of the individual katas are put together. So I'm just going to remove this one here for a moment. And actually, just bear with me a moment, because in order to do this properly, I need to set up the board a little bit so you can see how it's done. So, save it getting messy, I'm just going to do a little bit of a framework here of how these things actually go together. So, just a moment while we do a bit of geometry here. It's much better than me trying to draw these lines myself. So, oops, having said that, I'll make a bend of one of them. Okay, now what we've got here, the way I'm doing this is I'm going to put the on reading here, Chinese meaning, the kun reading, which will be the Japanese, and English is here. Now, if we look at the first kata, for example, so what we've got here, first kata name is heian. We have heian shodan, heian nidan, heian sandan, heian yondan, and heian godan. Okay, so each one of these we can say here, this is the first kanji or character, and this is the on reading, and the on reading for that is he. Oops, wrong pen, sorry. Just put that in black so you can see it clearly. So this is he. This is how it would appear in the book. So usually the first on reading is in capital letters like this. The second reading, the kun reading, will be how it's translated into Japanese. So usually that's written in lowercase like this for an English translated book. So he means hira. What does hira mean in English? It means flat or even. So the first part of the heian kata has the word he, being hira, equals flat or even. The second part is an. Translates into Japanese yasu. And yasu has the meaning of rest or stable. So now we get the idea of the heian kata. First of all, he, first part, means flat or even, and the second part, an, means rest or stable. When you put the two together, you can actually get the idea that if someone is in a stable condition and it's all flat and it's all even, then we have the concept that things are relatively peaceful. So this translates usually as peace and stability. So here we have the on reading and the kun reading and the English definition as we put it together. So maybe the he and the an doesn't exactly mean peace, and it doesn't exactly mean stability, but when you put he and together, you get peace and stability as a concept. So the final concept of the two kanjis is here in the bottom box. Some people call heian peaceful mind or peaceful form or something like that, but this is the actual derivation of the first words for he. Now, next, if we were to look at that, we've got heian shodan. So we can take, I'll take this one out first, put that over there. And we'll just put up shodan. And we can do the same exercise with shodan. So we take out these sections. Be a little careful not to rub the lines out here. And we've got the on reading is sho, sho, and this maybe comes to hajime, and the English for that would be like beginner or begin, so first maybe, and dan actually doesn't really have a translation directly for a Japanese word, so dan is dan, it means the same thing, and that equals level, or maybe grade. So this is a particular kanji for sho, and this is dan, and sho means hajime, that's how it's pronounced in Japanese when we use it as a Japanese word. These words can also be used in Japanese with sho as well. That's another subject, and I'm not going to try and get into that today as to how sometimes the Japanese use this reading and sometimes they use that reading. That's beyond this conversation for today, much too complicated. Perhaps it's a little bit of experience to figure out how that works. But this is the primary principle. Shodan means hajime, beginning or first level, and grade. So obviously shodan, it could mean if you've got heian shodan, then heian shodan just means first kata of heian. So this is shodan. Of course, you can have, usually we can have other ones, so you can have nidan and sandan, yondan and godan. So this is just different numbers signifying the levels going up. So it could be first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So that's shodan, and that applies to, could be teki shodan, teki nidan, teki sandan, heian shodan, and so forth. Now the next one to take a look at would be teki. So, teki, if we use the te of teki here, it actually comes from tetsu, and the kun reading is the same actually, it's also tetsu. And tetsu basically means iron. And ki translates into a horseman, so this is to ride, noru, and so this is ride. Actually, if you think about it, you have to have your hands on the reins, so maybe this might be feeling of te. So when you're riding, then you have a horseman. To make that one complete. So then you have the idea of teki, te, short for tetsu, and ki equals riding, like an iron horseman is how we usually translate that one in English. So with the idea of the person riding, in order to ride something, is that concept of the iron horseman. So probably also relates to how the kata is done with a very strong iron cast stance, like kibadachi or something like that. Now, going on to the next one. We'll take a look at basai. Just move these ones out first. So basai, so we've got ba, and ba comes from batsu, and the Japanese reading for that is nuku. Now the idea of batsu is quite a difficult one to explain, but actually nuku really means to remove. So if you're going to remove something, you have to pull it out or get in and do something. The batsai translates into fusagu. And fusagu means to close or be shut. If we put yo here at the top for yosai, this means a closed or shut building, like a fortress. So normally when we talk about basai, we talk about the fortress and penetrating into the fortress. So you've got to get the idea of the complete compound and how are you going to penetrate this fortress and get in there and remove the obstacle. And so often this one is translated as penetrate a fortress. So that even though you need yosai for fortress, but that bit's actually missing, but it doesn't matter, it's the same concept of how, and also ba is not batsu either, so it could be batsu yosai, but it actually is basai, is the short version of that one. So, we can go on to the next one. Just take those two down. And we come to the next one, which is, oh, well, actually, sorry there, just to put another point in there which I didn't mention, is that we've got two kanjis here. As you can see on this one, this is basai dai. So dai just means big. If you just put that kanji there, then this is just means large or big. And the other one, which you've all seen before, I'm sure, is sho. And so this is dai. Sho. Is big and small. So just to put those up for completeness on the basai sho, basai dai, and kanku dai, kanku sho has the same meaning. Now, as this video is going to go on for a little bit longer, I'm going to put a break in here, and I'll leave this up, and then we'll come back to it again in a moment. So that's all for this particular video. Us!